Hello, everyone. We hope you're doing well and healthy physically and mentally. We are from Group 11, and today we're going to discuss and present about Indonesia and Japan vaccine diplomacy. Our group consists of Andreas, Gisela, Gibran, and Jovan. Enjoy our presentation. So this is our presentation contents. It consists of backgrounds, theoretical framework, Indonesia's interest, Japan's interest, and finally the conclusions.
When the pandemic raged in Indonesia initially, it was known that it did not have any protective equipment for health workers, including the mask and sanitizers. So the lack of medical equipment in Indonesia shows that there was no anticipation of a global scale pandemic. Therefore, we can found that Indonesia's initial response is to seek and get as much as possible of this protective health equipment, which we found that this equipment is especially needed by health workers who deal with COVID-19 patients whose numbers increase rapidly. And at the bilateral level, Indonesia opens international doors in assisting in dealing with this pandemic. And as a result of Indonesia's effort in health diplomacy, other countries have donated medical equipment and vaccines to help Indonesia fight COVID-19. And one of the donations that we can found in cooperation is Japan as the largest donor country in Indonesia. The donation is part of a larger initiative by Japan to help Indonesia in its ongoing endeavor to immunize a million people against COVID-19.
In this presentations, we're going to utilize two-level game theory by Robert Putnam as our theoretical framework to see the international negotiation processes during Indonesia and Japan vaccine diplomacy. As we know, the two-level game theory consists of two processes before negotiators coming to negotiate with each other, which is the national or domestic level and international level. The domestic considerations or international considerations believes that there are needs of discussions within states before going to discuss in the international arena. Domestic entities advance their goals at the national level by lobbying the lawmakers to follow advantageous policies, while at the same time these lawmakers would then seek domestic influence by forming coalitions within said entities. Meanwhile, in the international level, he believes that there are pressures or there are needs for states to cooperate with each other, to create values and to have an exchange in the international level. In this sense, international level also seeks who are the partners, who are what are the commodities that needs to be exchanged in the international level. National governments strive to optimize their capacity to meet domestic pressures or domestic needs while mitigating the negative effects of foreign changes. These are actually the problems of each negotiator: sensitive interest and the inability to impress domestic constituents in the international arena, and to see whether the negotiator can meet their domestic interest and their national interest during the negotiations.
According to Joko Widodo, Indonesia has four general interests in its foreign policy. Number 1, strengthening Indonesia's identity as a country. Number 2, enhancing Indonesia's role and building international cooperations as it strengthens middle power diplomacy. Number 3, expanding the influence of involvement in the Indo-Pakistan region. And number 4, prioritizing the public interest in its foreign policy. The four aforementioned interest of Indonesia is also carried out during the pandemic era, especially number 4, that is, prioritizing the public interest in Indonesia's diplomacy. United Nations Development Program, Human Development Report in 1994 states that national threats could include the threat to infectious diseases and human lives. COVID-19 as a pandemic not only threatened the stability of the country, but also have major implications for economic performance and directly threatens human security. Therefore, it is in Indonesia's best interest to respond quickly to COVID-19 in order to mitigate the damage inflicted. Also in line with such interests, Retno Marsudi, Indonesian Minister of Foreign Affairs, promoted the importance of vaccine equality for Indonesia and others.
Japan has three main interests regarding vaccine diplomacy. First, they wish to provide ODAs to developing nations and have been doing so since 1990 and will continue to do so for future post-COVID-19 prospects. Second, they wish to improve the health sector of developing countries, especially in regards to infectious diseases and maternal and child health. Third, vaccine diplomacy is a part of Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Japan ran one of the most effective vaccination programs in 2020. In the beginning, only 3% of their population were vaccinated in June. However, during August, that number grew to over 45%. This is due in no small part to Japan's large inventory of vaccines. Japan was able to procure around 120 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine in their domestic stock, with an additional 90 million said to be produced. It is because of this large amount of vaccines that they were able to donate a large amount to other nations, such as the ones in Southeast Asia or the ones in Africa. This has allowed Japan to become the world's third largest vaccine supplier during the pandemic.
We can conclude that the importance of health diplomacy for states, improve health protection and demographic health, continue to improve relations among states, a contribution for a broad range of stakeholders to collaborate on improving health. We can also see that Indonesia has actively participating in the decision-making process for addressing the international health issues brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, and also Indonesia has engaged in international health diplomacy to seek medical supplies and vaccine alternatives. And also Indonesia global health diplomacy, influencing participation from Japan to deal with social and economic challenges that are relevant to health. The strategic partnership between Indonesia and Japan that we see successfully addressed in health diplomacy will be an important way to strengthen and widen mutualistic bilateral cooperation, as well as to look into new prospects to further practical collaboration in variety of fields.
Thank you for your attention. Let us know what do you think.